What is good, everybody? Welcome back in episode 18 of Catch and Counter. We've been off for a little bit, but we are back, and we are back better than ever before. So I am Jack, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, my guy, Mister I Told You So. Fresh off a hot 2023 year, looking to even have a hotter 2024 year. Nibs, what's going on, my guy? Good to be back.
Man, Jack, it's beautiful to be back, baby. Happy holidays to you, man. Hope you and yours had a good Christmas and New Year's. Here it is, man. 2024, bro. We here, Jack. You know what I
Yes, sir.
mean?
We back at it. So same to you. I hope you and your family had good holidays. So it's been a long time since we've been back, but not as long as it's been since Vergil Ortiz was back in the ring. He didn't fight at all in 2023, but he was back. And he had a quick fight this time around. I think I wanted to see how he looked early on. He looked sharp, but I think that clearly the story, which we'll get into later on, is the stoppage and then all the events that unfolded after the fight. But overall, Vergil healthily made weight, the catch weight of 156. He was in action. He did get to the ring. To me, that's the most important part. What were your thoughts on just Vergil coming back? Because we didn't see him at all in 2023, and he's someone that we've always been high on. He's a very, very good fighter. So to me, it was great to just see him back in action overall.
First off, I like what you did there with the tie-in. You know what I'm saying? Y'all see Jack? Y'all see Jack? He on his shit. Y'all better keep fucking around with him. Anyway, look, Vergil Ortiz to me needs to go to 160 and stop fucking around. Um, I know he wants to stay around the welterweight division in some kind of way, you know, whether it be, super or regular welterweight. He needs to go on ahead and leave that the fuck alone. He's a 160-pound fighter. Having said that, he looked good. And albeit, we'll get into how the fight went later. But I like that he looked good. He didn't look super drained. He didn't look like, he was going through any bullshit. He looked like what we expected Vergil Ortiz Jr. to look like.
Man, he's just an entertaining guy. I think he's the kind of guy that if you got casual friends or whatever, there's some boxers that we like that you might not show them. But I think Virgil's the kind of guy, no matter when he fights, you can sit down people and say, hey, watch this dude, he's going to be entertaining. And he was on his way to being entertaining, but clearly, and this stinks for Vergil because we're going to get into the whole stoppage, but this is not his fault at all. I'm sure he said he wanted the fight to go on. He's clearly not the one who pulled the plug, anything like that. So he did good. He did everything he could do, and I believe he still was on his way to an early stoppage, but clearly what everyone is probably here they want us to talk about as far as this fight was concerned was the stoppage. Tony Weeks came in, I think, what was it, halfway through or a little past halfway through of the first round. Vergil landed a jab that kind of did rock Lawson a little bit. He had him up against the ropes, and he was landing some body shots. A lot of the shots were blocked too, but even though I think he was on his way to getting the stoppage, I think you got to be fair to Frederick Lawson. This is his big moment, his big fight. He's rallied off some wins to get here. And people are saying, oh, he was going to get him anyways, but then why even make the damn fight? That's what I want to say to that, too, just because you see people saying this and that, but let's be real. If Lawson is in the ring, he deserves the same chance that all these other guys do. And we'll get into possible conditions or anything like that in a little bit, too, but to me, he deserves a shot. Was Vergil probably going to take over? Yes, but that's a probable thing. We ain't seen it happen yet, so that's what I want to say. So I think just Lawson deserved a shot. Was Vergil on the way to getting the stoppage? Yes. What were your thoughts? What was going through your mind when you had seen that the fight was getting stopped?
Hey, bro, you know me. I hate early fucking stoppages. I hate that shit with a passion. So what I look at is this, right? Now, some things came out later after the fight. Like you said, we'll get into that a little bit later. If any of that is true, then there's a whole different conversation to be had. But if you look at just the fight and the way it was going at the time, I think, I would have, if I was Tony Weeks, I would have went into hiding. Like, this was a horrible stoppage. Look, fighters get rocked. It's boxing. You can get hit with a punch and it can hurt. And you can take a minute to regroup. And it looked like that's what Lawson was doing. He had his guard up. He was still rolling with the punches. He was still actively defending himself, right? He wasn't just standing there and getting punched in the face. He was he was defending himself intelligently. Did that mean that he wasn't going to lose the fight? No. Did it mean that Vergil wasn't going to eventually knock him out? No. But another thing people have to take into consideration, a lot of people, that's their strategy, is to be all defense for the first round or two, and then fuck around and let a dude punch himself out and come out and start getting your shit off. How can you do that when they're just going to stop the fight the second it looks like you're in trouble, right? We know a guy like that in Matias. This dude basically doesn't throw any punches for the first 2 rounds, like doesn't do anything but take shots. Then in the third and fourth round, he makes you do the stanky leg. So how do we know that wasn't what Lawson's game plan was? Hey, this dude hasn't been in the ring for a minute. Let me kind of let him punch himself out, weather the storm, and come in on the back end of the fight. Well, you can't do that if they're going to stop it just because it looks bad. And that's what it looked like. Now, I'm not saying that's what would have happened, but what I'm saying is if that's your game plan, you can't even execute your game plan because they're just going to stop the fight. And I only reason I can say that's a plausible thing is because it didn't look like Lawson was on his way out. He looked like he got rocked. He was actively defending himself, and they stopped the fight. Now Tony Weeks says he stopped it for some other stuff, and we'll see.
Yeah, and I think as far as the stoppage is concerned, even Lawson, like you said, Lawson wasn't in an ideal spot. But anybody who's been in the ring or even watched enough boxing, you know that not everything's going to go according to plan. To sometimes you do just got to throw those earmuffs up, kind of survive, block a few shots, and then kind of just go back to the drawing board. You got to buy yourself a little bit of time in there, and I think that's exactly what Lawson was doing. And he the moment was stolen from him to be able to adjust. Was he going to be able to adjust? We don't know. But that's for him to figure out in the ring, and it seems like he had that opportunity stolen from him in the moment. But as far as Vergil, like I said, it's not his fault, so it's not. He did everything he had to do. Just seemed like Lawson was doing everything he had to do to get out of that moment. Problem is, he was never able to figure it out and adjust after the fact.
The biggest problem I have with this is this: if the roles were reversed, if Lawson had landed an early shot on Ortiz, do they stop the fight with Vergil Ortiz doing
No
the
way.
same?
No chance.
No, because he's the money, right? He's the guy that's supposed to win. So if the guy who's supposed to lose lands a lucky shot or lands a good shot on you and gets you feeling some kind of way, and you shell up to get through the round, they never stop it when the money guy shells up. It's always the guy who's supposed to lose, right? They stop it when he looks like any kind of way looks like he might be on his way out. That's the problem I have with it. Be consistent with it, bro. They would have never stopped this fight had Vergil Ortiz went up to the ropes and did this.
Yeah, we got King Felix G in the building. So Felix, I'm gonna pass it to you. I just want to get this point off before I forget it real quick. But going back to the stoppage too, we see a lot of fights, even if they're kind of early stoppages, you'll see the ref say, okay, you got to show me something, you got to show me something, you got to throw your hands, and kind of give the guy a chance. So if Tony Weeks had said that, and then Lawson still blocks some punches but doesn't throw back, then I think it's a more acceptable stoppage. But the problem is he didn't give him the chance to say, you got to show me something, you got to throw your hands, this and that. He kind of just stopped it. So that was another point that I wanted to bring up also in this whole thing.
And I don't know, did you guys touch on the whole brain aneurysm thing too?
That's what we were just about to get to. So we can kind of you can give your thoughts and then kind of tie into that also right now.
Yeah, because I only have a few minutes. I just want to pop in, show y'all some love real quick, and plug the Monday show, Boxing Shop. Will be back this week. But
Number two.
It was an interesting because it was a very quick reaction. Everybody's thinking Tony Weeks is being more sensitive to fighters since the David Morrell fight a couple years ago. But after seeing what he said, knowing with that knowledge that he had in his head, I can see why he would be very quick to stop that fight. The public didn't know, obviously, and that's a very serious condition. And the safety of the fighter is always, priority. And it looks like clearly he was doing that. So, I mean, with that being said, what are your guys' thoughts on that? I'll kick it back to you guys now.
My number one thought is then we're having a completely different conversation, right? Because if you look at it just on the surface of it, if you look at it without having that knowledge, that was a horrible stoppage. It was probably one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen, period, right? But having that knowledge, then I think Tony Weeks did exactly what he was supposed to do, other than blowing the whistle prior to them even walking into the ring. He did what he could do as a referee to make sure this dude could go home to his family, right? And what, me and Jack were kind of talking about this pre-show, and I said, what kind of leads me to believe there might be some credence to what he said is the response from Golden Boy and the commission. It wasn't vehemently denying it. It wasn't a whole bunch of facts being thrown out to the contrary. It was simply, well, he passed the physical. He was ready to fight. That kind of lets you know, well, he passed. well, wait a minute. You know what I mean? What does that mean though? Like, if this dude has if two people say, nah, he ain't right, a third guy comes in and says, yeah, no, he can pass. Well, yeah, that's a pass. But does that necessarily mean that dude should have been in the ring fighting that night? So if he had that knowledge, I'm 100% okay with it. I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do, and kudos to him.
Yeah, it's just tough too because Tony Weeks has been one of the most respected referees in the game a long time. Even me and Nips was saying, I mean, he was the referee for Corrales and Castillo. So talk about a guy who's let fights go on and then also stopped it at the perfect time. He's shown that he's been able to be the definition of a guy who's been able to do that. To me, that's the thing I brought up, and of course Felix had to come in and steal my point. It's all good though. But since the David Morrell fight against Eidos Yobosinoli at the end of 2022. I think it's been a bit of a pattern since then. Some people brought up like the Canelo Angulo fight. It was kind of an anticlimactic stoppage. A fight that Canelo was going to win, but an anticlimactic kind of stoppage. But to me, it's been especially since after that Yerbosinoli fight where Yerbosinoli was put in a coma and he's recovered since. I don't think he's going to ever get back to boxing. And also, that was a fight that was a long, sustained beating that went out for a lot of rounds. And once we got from round 7 on, a lot of people were saying, oh, not just him, but the corner or someone should have stepped in and stopped that fight just because Yobosinoli had no chance of winning. And it was just kind of a long beatdown, which ended up putting him into a coma. So just being a human, I'm sure that definitely weighs on him. I'm not sure to the amount that it weighs on him, but being someone who was able to do his job at the highest level, as good as you can do it, I'm sure that has something to do with this. And even this performance aside, we saw him, we're going to talk about the co-main event soon, but just the Ismael Barroso and Rolly fight he had earlier this year too, where even his excuse for that one was just saying that Barroso's a 40-year-old guy, he's old. And I think from the angle he was at, which I was saying in Dave's pre-show, was that Barroso did kind of like hunch over forward, and the shot missed, but from Tony's angle, I can see how he could have thought it landed. But either way, he still pulled the plug a bit too early on that one. So to me, I think a lot of it is just because of the Morrell-Yerbosinoli fight, and a lot of legal implications with obviously the Facebook post that he's then put down, but I don't think he's ever going to ref again just because I think the spot it puts the commission and the spot it puts him in. I think even if he's right about it, I think there's an investigation that's going to go on, whether or not he was even, me and Nips were saying too, I'm not sure if he was even supposed to know about that information coming in, but one way or another, like Nips said, whether it was he heard it through a meeting or whatever, he clearly heard it at some point. And you can argue that, as Nips was saying too, that he did the job he was supposed to do once he got in the ring of protecting him. But I think some people will also say, well, if you knew this information, why didn't you just say it before the fight? Because, yeah, you did your best in that moment to protect Lawson, but what if Vergil Ortiz had knocked him unconscious with the first left hook he threw? Just something you couldn't have prepared for, and then it would have been completely out of your hands. So it's a tough thing. I'm not sure where he goes from this. It puts him in a weird spot, and I think it's even weirder with the response from Golden Boy and the commission just saying, not going into detail with anyone, but just saying, yeah, end of story. He was cleared to fight. That's all we got to say for now.
Yeah, and I think it's as you mentioned, Tony Weeks, he's respectable. He's been in the game for a very, very long time. And who better of a person to know of an issue going on with the fighter than the third man in the ring? So however that information got leaked to him, I'm glad it did, and I'm glad he was able to make that decision for the fighter to protect him that night.
So Felix, I got a question for you, bro. I mean, you've been in this, dealing with commissions and things like that in more detail than me and Jack have, And so my question to you, right, is, we all kind of figure, this is going to have some blowback if there's any credence that comes to what Tony Weeks is saying, right? If this comes out to be proven that what he said is accurate, how do you see that fallout playing out?
I don't think he gets punished for it, and I do think he might be a little bit of a blackballed type of scenario now for certain fights. Which at this stage of his career, who cares? I mean, he can just call it a career at this point. You know what I mean? Just like Kenny Bayless did. But I think if it does, come forth that everything he said was true, then the commission is going to come down, and there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on everybody involved with that. He was there to do his job, and he did his job, and stopping the fight prematurely could have been because of that information that he knew already, and so he's even further doing his job as protecting the fighter. So I don't think he's in any fear. I think the only thing that Tony has to worry about is being blackballed from certain events and whatnot, probably. But other than that, I think the commission, no matter what happens, honestly, is in hot water right now.
And that's the one thing I wonder is that do you think we'll even ever get a concrete answer on any of these tests? Or do you think my assumption would it be just it's all going to be speculation? We're never going to hear anything official going forward for any of the tests or anything like that?
I don't know. I think there's going to be some hush money kicked around somewhere, I think, because this has been a big spotlight that I don't think they wanted. Because there's been other fighters that have been telling similar stories. If you hop on Twitter, I saw a couple of guys saying, I've been in similar situations where guys weren't clear to fight and whatnot, and they fought in another state, a couple weeks later because they're clear. So the thing about boxing is stuff like this happens all the time, honestly, and it's going to continue to happen. This is a very high profile fight, and this isn't the type of fight you expect to see it on either. Yeah. Usually it's like lower club level type of guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and obviously we're not sure of anything, but on this hypothetical sense that these things did occur, it would make some sense too, just because Vergil hasn't been in the ring for so long. He's had his own health scare, so if you have something like that happen last minute, even though some people were saying that, Golden Boy's not going to risk all this for Frederick Lawson, who's a B-side fighter. And you can see what they're saying, but also if this is a day or two before the fight, it's going to be hard to scramble and get an opponent who's approved for the commission to fight Vergil Ortiz. Like you say, you're not talking about fighting a club-level guy. You're talking about fighting a guy who's now 20-0 with 20 knockouts. You got to have a serviceable opponent cleared to fight him. And if you're trying to look on a guy on a days or two notice, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. They don't want to have to cancel a show. They've already canceled a few shows that he's been involved in. Some his fault, some not his fault. So it could have been a safe day thing, and just as they always say, like just the show must go on no matter what. I think it could have been that too.
I think it's a sad thing, right? I mean, this shit's been going on forever, man. Like I remember, I don't know if you guys remember a fighter. His name was Courtney Burton back in the day. He fought Emmanuel Augustus a couple of times, and the second time he fought Emmanuel Augustus was actually the one who told the commission, "Hey, you want to get this dude checked out. I don't think he's quite right." Came out later on that he had some issues, and this is not the first time that's happened to him. He was fighting Ray Oliveira, and we found out dude had major issues, and they were hiding these things. Why? Because these guys are big money. They're making big money. These were guys that had names. They were getting placements in places other fighters weren't. Promoters have money tied into these guys. They're trying to recoup, et cetera, et cetera. There's a million reasons why they keep putting these dudes in the ring, even though they're failing these tests. So and then now we got to figure out, okay, well, what does that mean for Lawson and his career and his ability to feed his family? Because now, if any of that is even remotely true, nobody's going to want to put him in the ring against their fighter, because if I'm a fighter, I don't want to be responsible for this dude ending up in a coma or dying in the ring. So, I think it's got implications across not just, this one particular fight. This is going to affect a lot of shit down the road.
And I remember that fight you're talking about too with Augustus and Oliveira too. Augustus clearly knew something was wrong with Ray Oliveira, and he did not even punch him to the head. He stayed body shots only, and he was so far, superior skilled than Oliveira that he was able to, keep him away, dodge punches and all that. And if you watch that fight, that was about as taking it easy of a fight as you can get. And he did not throw headshots. Like he knew, and he was begging the referee to stop the fight. Referee didn't. He just stayed to the body. And that's the kind of admiration you build for a fighter like that too.
Yeah, just a tough situation as a whole. Hopefully, as you said, there's some good can come from this, whether it's stricter fight week things or just finding out and getting to the bottom of whatever did or did not happen. I think that's all we want to see. We want to see these dudes safe at the end of the day. They're fighting and risking their lives for our entertainment. The least I think people can do is make sure they are as safe as possible while doing it. But last question I want to ask on Vergil is Nibs has already said he wants to see him go to 160. That was something I've been saying before too. I just thought it was an easier path to a title too, but they've also been mentioned in Tim Tszyu as a fight that they want to have at some point. Now, I don't think it's a fight that should happen next. I think Vergil needs to get more rounds in, but I think talk about a style matchup that would be entertaining. I think that's the perfect kind of fight that you'd want to see. Is this something? Do you guys think he gets a few stay busy fights before he gets a big fight, regardless of the division? Because I think that's what I'd want to see. At least probably one or even two more fights of this level. Maybe a top 15 kind of guy, then like a Brian Mendoza kind of guy who's been there and done that, and a very durable guy before taking on a Tim Tszyu or even a champion at 160. But what do you guys think about Vergil going forward?
I would say this real quick, and then I got a dip. I agree completely with you, Jack. I think this fight wasn't the one that we expected or needed. He does need to get some more rounds in there, and even if he does have a couple quick knockouts, let him get at least 2 or 3 more of those, because he can knock those out. He could fight January, February, March if he's stopping these dudes in the first round. But I want to see him get in there, get the exposure, get under the lights, and just get back in action again. Be more active before he takes on somebody like Tim Tszyu, because I think right now, Tim Tszyu will probably wash him, honestly, in an exciting fight, but I think he needs to build that experience back up again. But I'm going to peace out. You guys have fun. It was great. And then I will see y'all next week myself. Peace.
All right, we'll see you. It was smart marketing by Felix there, too. Coming on, knowing we're going to have some people on here to promote his own show. I don't blame him on that. That was a nice hustler move right there, so I'll give him credit for it.
I mean, look, if I was on the boxing show, the Monday show, right? Of course, I'd come drop in on the Friday joint and talk about my show. This is where everybody comes anyway. So, I mean, it's catch and counter, baby. Fuck with us or fuck off, But yeah, Jack, I think, just to kind of tie up the Lawson and Ortiz Jr. thing, sadly, I think it's a part of boxing. These guys are going to fail physicals and they're going to get passes. Whether that's on them, whether that's on their promoter, whether that's on the commission, or a combination of the three, right? I think it's going to continue to happen. It's been in part of the sport since it came along. I don't think it's going to be the first or the last time anybody hears about this. What I would hope for Lawson is that if he does have any kind of issues, he gets himself checked out. He takes it serious, does what he needs to do, because at the end of the day, there's no punch worth not being able to feed your family or to, hug your kids or kiss your mama. So go ahead and take care of yourself, bro. And look, what's his record? I think he's like 30-4 or some shit like that. He's got a good record, bro. You can always come back. It's not like this is the end of the road for him. But for Ortiz Jr., to kind of piggyback on the Tim Tszyu thing, if he were to fight Tim Tszyu next, he'd be food. Like, let's be real clear. Next, it'd be, like you said, it'd be an entertaining fight for as long as it went. But Tim Tszyu's right now is washing Ortiz Jr. I think for that fight to happen, it would either be end of the year or next year, and Ortiz needs to have at least 2 more fights before he gets Tim Tszyu. That's big boy pants right there, bro. But I still think 160 is where he needs to be at. He looks like a guy who should be fighting at 160.
Yeah. I even remember seeing old pictures of him and Brian Castano when they used to spar each other, and I noticed even just that Vergil was taller, longer, and bigger. And because that was when Castano was at 54 and Vergil was at 47. So as you said, he's always been more of a natural 54-pounder middleweight. So I think even if he has a cup of coffee at 54, I think he will be at 60 eventually. But he's back with Robert Garcia. I think that's a great pairing for him style-wise and just I think lifestyle-wise for him also. Just that's the kind of camp and team you want to be around with. They're going to get you right, no doubt about that. And they're smart with these things. I think that Vergil, as the fighter, is going to call out Tim Tszyu because that's the fight he wants. But they know they're going to take a few fights. But I will say, I'll give Vergil Ortiz. If we see him back to being that Vergil Ortiz, I've always been high on Vergil. I give him a pretty damn good shot against Tim Tszyu. I'm not saying I want to see him going forward, but I think that's a style match where they do a lot of similar things. I think Vergil with that sharp jab when he's throwing those combinations and stuff, he's going to be tough to beat for anybody. So I just hope that we're able to see that version of him down the line. Or like you said, probably later on this year or early next year at some point.
Oh, I appreciate it. Let your nuts hang, young man. I mean, if you think you that bad motherfucker, go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, this is why we watch boxing, right? You know what I'm saying? We love that shit. Talk your shit. Go in there and tell the dude that's the man, hey, fuck you. I can whoop your ass. Love it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you're ready yet. But I will say this: if they do fight next, right, my respect level for Ortiz Jr. goes way up because it's like, look, 2 years off, you got this one little round joint, and then you go fight the man. You know what I'm saying? Golf claps all around. But because there are a lot of guys who do take that, they want to take the easy fights, make some money, and then, what they used to call it, let it marinate. Yeah, no. He wants that smoke right now. So I'll give him that. If it's real smoke, hey, bro, sign me up.
That's a fact. Yeah, like you said, we're talking about fight fans fights. I think that's the definition of when you look up in the dictionary of fight fans fight. I think a 2025 fight between Vergil Ortiz and Tim Tszyu is right up in there for sure. But we'll touch on the co-main event real quick because Ismael Barroso, he was out for justice. And I think he had the judge and the jury both in his left hand. And boom, cracked O'Hara Davies, dropped him once, dropped him second time, fight was over. So that was great to see. We just talked about Tony Weeks, and a lot of people felt he got screwed over in the Rolly Romero fight, a fight that he was winning. And though he was dropped, it seemed like it was a weird time to stop the fight, a fight he was clearly ahead. It seemed like he had his wits with him, all those things. So, man, I'll tell you what, I was really excited. Not just because I threw a little bit of money on him by stoppage. We missed last week. That would have been my dog watch pick, but hey, it's all good. We'll start. We got a few later on in the show, but man, I was really excited for Barroso, all jokes aside. Talk about the boxing game will do a lot of guys dirty. It's done him dirty. He's 40 years old. Kind of never got his shot. He's had a few step-up fights. Haven't gone his way, but he's always came back and won a bunch of fights since then. So, man, I can't lie. I was really excited for the dude. A guy that I've never met before, but as excited as I can be for a guy that I've never met and don't really know much of than I was for Barroso. So what do you think about seeing him get not just a knockout, but to do it the way he did against O'Hara Davies as the underdog, too?
What's crazy is again, it's another one of those things where you never know, bro. Just because this dude's 40 years old and we did see him, again, albeit an early stoppage in most people's opinion, he got stopped in his last fight against Rolly. People forget, if there's one thing Rolly can do is he hits hard as fuck. You know what I mean? And even Tank said that in their fight. Yo, this dude really does hit hard as shit. But Barroso he's got some power. I mean, he almost knocked Rolly out, right? So, maybe that gives credence to Rolly's chin a little bit. Maybe, his chin's better than we thought it was because he survived that and came back. But everybody, the betting money was on Davies, right? Hey, take this fight, we'll get you another one. They were trying to roll him along. He fucked around and found out Rosso got that smoke, baby. And congratulations to him, because this does put him in a position to get that get back against Rolly, in his next fight. Depending on what Rolly does next, you know what I'm saying? If he survives whatever he does next. But, this goes to prove, if you take care of yourself, you stay in the gym, you eat right, you get your nutrition right, you got a clean life, or you just got to, you're taking care of your shit, you can box as long as your body will hold up, bro. So, and what they say, the last thing to go is that power. And he proved that shit. And, one thing I don't like, and I've seen some shit on YouTube, Davies trying to make some excuses about some shit about the casino. What? Okay. Stop it. You got your ass whooped. It happens. Next.
Yeah, and the thing I had said to you guys when I mentioned it, I don't know if he thought Barroso slept outside or in a car or something like that, but I'm pretty sure he was in a similar situation. But hey, right. I think a lot of these fighters, whenever they take a loss like that, they gotta, just as competitors, they gotta kind of grasp something. So I could see that, because for him, he's thinking the same thing. Ain't no way I'm gonna let this old dude knock me out. So when he does, he's gonna find something just at night to kind of just think about it as a reason. So, not saying I agree with it. I can see why fighters go to that, because as competitors, they need just to keep going that next day. He can always say, yeah, he beat me, but for this or for that. I ain't buying it. I'll say that. But I think that's the reason you get some of those things. But for Barroso, too, I think this speaks to a lot of times when you see fighters, especially from other countries and stuff, when they come in, yeah, they might have a few losses earlier on in their career. So people look and say, oh, if they lost to this guy, so they're not going to beat this guy and things like that. One thing you got to factor in is for those guys, one, a lot of them turn pro very young, and also there's not a lot of money in those guys. So when he was earlier on in his career, there's not a lot of money. He's probably working, not even probably, 1,000% working a full-time job, if not 2 or 3 full-time jobs while he's trying to box. So the later those guys get into their career, the better they are. I am damn sure he's better right now at 40 years old than he was at 25. Because he's got a little bit more money. He's got a real team behind him. He's able to do strength and conditioning. He's able to do all these things. He's not doing probably the hard labor and work he was doing when he was in his physical prime. But now, because he's been able to do that, like you said, he stayed in the gym, his work ethic, so he is probably at his best now. And I think some of those older fighters from other countries, even from this country or any country that don't have a lot of money behind them, don't get the credit they deserve because you say, oh, they lost to this guy, not realizing this ain't the same dude from back then. They get a little money behind them. They start to really treat themselves like a professional boxer. And, hey, we're seeing what can happen when guys do that.
It's, you know what, and you know, we get to this at the end of every show, but you know, I say this every show: you support local boxing, right? And this is even more important in these third world countries, right? You see it all the time with Mexican fighters. A lot of these dudes literally came from shacks, you know, fighting in dirt rings, you know, fighting without the modern advances that we take for granted here in the Americas, right? I think Barroso is what, Colombian or Honduras or some shit like that, right? So you take it, he was literally fighting out the mud. He got his shit out the mud. He, you know, and then when you get to a point, right, where now, like you said, now he's getting real money, he's getting real training, he's doing all this shit properly, right? Now he's knocking motherfuckers out because back then it was literally just the punches. Like, hey, I'm knocking you the fuck out because I can, right? Now he's got the boxing skill to go with it, and he's got nutrition. He's been taking care of himself, and it's validation for him. Again, like, you know, he's dedicated his life to the sport, and it's paying off for him. I hope he gets a big money fight next.
Yep, exactly. And he's from Venezuela, lived most of his career, fought mostly out of there, but he's fighting out of Miami, Florida now. And we're seeing, just as I said, the result of a guy who is now able to treat themselves like a professional boxer. A lot of these guys, 99.9% of those local guys that we mentioned are B-side guys. Even B-side guys on big shows, guys fighting for titles, aren't able to do this day to day. So when they're able to get some money, you can see just they become a whole different fighter when they do those things too. So meant to do this earlier, but I do want to shout out everybody watching. As always, if you guys hit that like button, we appreciate it. We're not people on here begging for many things. We don't do those things. I just figure, hey, it don't hurt you to do it, and it definitely helps us, so we appreciate any support we have. Jesus, I want to shout out you because you were in here before we even got on. Beterbiev TKO by 11. I'm kind of along that same thinking. We're going to break down that fight in a few minutes. We got Bean in the building, too. We got Jesus also saying Vergil called out Tim, but like we were saying, Robert most likely fight at the end of the year. Jesus says he wants to see him fight him next. So, hey, like we said, we're down for that fight if it is next. I'm sure Vergil would like to see that fight be next, but we will see. But moving on, going back to Barroso, you had mentioned you hope to see. That's something I had written down here too. Is I just want to see this dude get a fair shot. Problem is, we got looks like Rolly and Ryan might be having a potential fight. WBA now. Barroso is supposed to be next, no matter what. Problem is, we know how this boxing game works. Money talks. So, do you anticipate Barroso fighting for a title next, or do you think he's going to have to get paid step aside? Or I'm not even sure. Does he even accept step aside money? He probably wants to, but he's also 40 years old. You got to wonder. Power is the last thing to go, but your legs and all those things. 40 years old. If you turn into 41, 42 years old, it gets harder and harder to do those things. So, do you think that he does get that shot at some point this year?
No. And that's the sad part. I think he gets a bigger money fight than what he's been getting. But I don't think it's going to be, a title fight. And the reason for that is because he's too dangerous. There's too high risk without the reward to fight Barroso, right? Like if you're To, if you're Haney, if you're Rolly, right? You've already beaten the guy, right? You stopped him, or you got a stoppage win on your ledger against him. Nobody really wants to run that back against Barroso, and Rolly almost got stopped himself by Barroso in their fight. So, people are going to look at that and go, nah, because even if I can box circles around this dude, he literally just needs one, right? If he clips me once, I could be in trouble. So, unless the money is absolutely right, um, I don't really think anybody's going to take that risk. If Rolly has to, fight him at 140, I think Rolly would rather move up to 147 than fight Barroso again, bro. You're on mute.
There we go. Even Jesus saying Ryan hasn't done anything at 40 to get a title. Well, he hasn't even really fought at 40. His last fight was at 143. But as we said, it sucks. We don't agree with it, but money does talk. I do think we probably see Ryan and Rolly next. But hey, as you said, Barroso is dangerous for Rolly in a rematch. Also for Ryan. I can't confidently say that Ryan Garcia will go in there and beat Barroso. I damn near would probably do the same thing I did last week, and I put some money on Barroso by stoppage in that fight. Talk about a southpaw who's awkward, who hits hard, who's not going to overcommit, leave himself wide open for anything crazy either. Man, he's a tough style matchup for. We talk about 140 being a deep division. He's one of those guys who you talk about. I think maybe the top of the top would be able to probably maybe beat him with relative ease. But even then, you're always going to have that left hand in the back of your mind. And man, for either of those two guys, I'm sure you do see Rolly and Ryan fight each other because ain't no way either one of those two are signing up to fight a guy like Barroso next. There's just no way. But I will say, as I mentioned that, we do have someone who's trying to sign up for the Barroso fight. Our guy, your guy, Kenny Sims, has been out saying, hey, people don't want to fight this dude. I'm next up in the WBA. Give me that shot. So I think if boxing was going to do things the right way, they strip Rolly. If Rolly's going to fight Ryan, make Barroso and Kenny Sims for the full WBA title. And, bro, that's a hell of a fight right there. And Kenny Sims is the perfect guy. Both guys who have kind of been screwed over at certain points, but boxing would right their wrong if they gave both those guys a title shot. But unfortunately, I'm not sure if we're going to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, Rolly and Ryan makes money. Let's be real clear. It's a blockbuster fight because of who they are. They're popular. Whether we like it or not, Rolly and Ryan would be huge on social media. It would be huge on. It would sell, right? And let's be really clear where they're both at in their boxing careers. It's probably the better fight for the two of them next. It'd probably be the more entertaining fight because they're actually kind of on the same level. So you probably like if Ryan actually gets Haney next, I'll watch that on replay because I'm pretty sure I know how that's gonna go. Right? I don't need to see it. It's just like I didn't need to see Haney fighting Cambosis. I knew how that was gonna go. So again, love them or hate them, they're both kind of on the same playing field. They're both super popular. It's gonna make money. Rolly just so happens to have a belt. Now, if Kenny Sims, who's my guy, gets Barroso, watch your ass, Kenny, because you know what I'm saying. But I would love to see that fight, and again, it would be a bigger money fight than what he just got, right, against Davies. It makes sense, and that is a fight that he can win, right? But it would also be it's a fight I think Kenny Sims could get out of, get a dub against a real solid dude, and then he could be next, which I would love to see. I would love to see either one of those guys succeed, to be honest with Kenny Sims, obviously more because he's my guy, but I would love to see either one of them get a title shot next. I think to me that like if you put that on the undercard of like a Ryan Rolly, bro.
Yes, sir. Sims, Chi-Town stand up. But I think that fight is so big for both those guys because that belt gives them both the leverage now to be able to get those big fights. Without the belt, we're seeing how hard it is for Kenny Sims to get a big fight. We're seeing how hard it is for Barroso, who's literally the mandatory to even still get a big fight. So I think just getting the belt would mean so much for those guys, and it would be unifications down the line, anything. And if they both do get that belt, I have no doubt that both those guys would sign contracts for unifications, would sign contracts for big fights. Those dudes are about to smoke. So I think that's what we need to see in the sport. And for the Rolly and Ryan fight, because the funny part is I love that fight too. I just think they'd be doing Barroso wrong in the moment. But like you're saying, sign me up for that fight. Even I would have watched Ryan and Devin, wouldn't have been thrilled. But man, I like this fight way better. I can see why Haney and them are pissed because they thought they had the Ryan fight. It would have been a big fight for them. But me, like you said, Devin would have comfortably beat Ryan. I'm 98% sure. Rolly and Ryan, I don't know how that fight goes. That's a great fight. That fight would be a build-up. They got history, the sparring sessions, all those things. And talk about a live dog. Rolly Romero will be a live dog in that fight, I think, absolutely, too. So I love that fight. I just don't want it to be at the expense of one of these other guys who's earned a shot and get in the way of their title fight. That's all.
Now, here's the thing with that is that Golden Boy has come out flat out and said, okay, Ryan, that's cute, but we're still going to go after Haney, right? And I think Haney and I know people are going to think I'm crazy. I think Haney needs Ryan more than Ryan needs Haney at this point because Ryan's a bigger star. I'm not saying he's a better fighter. We all know who the better fighter is. Devin Haney is the better fighter by a mile, right? They might not even fuck a mile. They're not even in the same race. Like it's a different, you know. But Devin Haney, for all of his abilities, is not the bigger star, right? If he got a fight with a Rolly, or if he got a fight with a Ryan or a Tank, right, that puts him on a different level. Look what fighting Tank did for Rolly and Ryan, right? And they were already popular stars. So you look at that. Now Ryan's a bigger blockbuster star than Haney is. Haney needs that to get not only the bigger money fights, but it gives him a little bit more respect, right, from the casuals. You and I and everybody who knows the sport knows Devin Haney's the dude right now, or one of the dudes. He's top pound for pound guy, etc. I think if he fights Ryan, he's going to do him worse than he did Regis, in my opinion.
Man, I'm with you on that. I think you bring up some good points too. I think that depends on how you want to gauge it because from a legacy perspective, I don't think Devin needs Ryan at all because even if he beats him, that wouldn't be his most impressive win. It wouldn't be his second most impressive win. Probably wouldn't even be his third most impressive win. So, but are you talking about the money wise and things like that? Then I can kind of see what you're saying, and that's the difference I think in what because people will see what you're saying and they'll say, oh well, Ryan hasn't done this and that, and we all know that you're saying from a different perspective. From legacy, he doesn't need Ryan Garcia, not at all. He needs even some of the other big fights. You're saying for the commercial success of trying to become a whole superstar, that aids in the process of doing that, and I agree with that. So we're going to have, I said, people saying Devin doesn't need Ryan. He doesn't need Ryan. But I think what you're saying, if he wants to build into a commercial huge superstar, I can see what you're saying, and that's a fight that aids him into it because it's also a fight he's going to look damn well in. So I think at the end of the day, that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, look, does Devin need to fight Ryan for his legacy? Absolutely not. Jack just said that very beautifully. Devin needs to fight the Teos of the world. He needs to fight the Tanks of the world. He needs to fight, if he can get a fight with Bud Crawford, Jesus, that would be, you know what I'm saying? That's what Devin Haney needs because that's who Devin Haney is. He's on that level as far as skill is concerned. And I said this after the Regis fight. I said, the bigger weights, the 140s and the 147s, seem like the better weight classes for him. It looked like he was killing himself now that we see what he did to Regis Prograis. Looks like he was killing himself to make that 135. You know what I'm saying? And just imagine if he'd have fought Kambosos at 140, what he did to him. You know what I mean? And and that was an easy fight. Now his power seems to be a little bit more there. He might be able to hurt you, and he can outbox your ass. So Ryan, let's be real clear. Ryan is a B level fighter with a very big following on social media. You know what I'm saying? Him and Rolly both. But guess what? They both make more money than Devin Haney does, or about the same, and they're nowhere near his skill level. What does that tell you? Sometimes popularity counts. You know what I'm saying? So, when you're on that track to make money, if it's big money fights you want, you need those names. You need those Ryan Garcias. You need those Rolly Romeros, the guys that can get butts in the seats so you can justify yourself being on a pay-per-view. Because let's face it right now, if you put Devin Haney against anybody else, not named Teofimo Lopez, in the 140-pound division, I'm not really willing to pay pay-per-view money for that. I might watch it on ESPN Plus or something like that I'm already paying for. But I'm definitely not shelling out $80, for Devin Haney. Let's be real clear. I mean, it is what it is. Now, if he fights Rolly or Ryan, goddamn right, I'm shelling out that money. You don't have to like it. I'm not telling you got to like it. It is what it is.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that I'm not even sure how much. I mean, Ryan had the big fight against Tank, but that was also him on the B side, and I'm not sure. I think if Tank and Devin fought, it could do similar, if not better, numbers too. And I think besides that, Ryan hasn't been on a pay-per-view or anything yet, and Devin has been on 2 pay-per-views. They haven't done great, but he's been selling out his tickets. So I think that the Ryan fight would be big for him, in helping him grow his status. But I think even without that fight, he's doing his thing right now. He's sold out to Chase Center. He's fought on pay-per-view against Loma and Regis. So I think whether he gets that fight or not, I think he's on his way to becoming a big star anyways, for sure.
I agree. And we're on the same page with that. But at the same time, does Ryan need Devin Haney to make a shitload of money? No. Devin Haney is gonna, let's face it, if Devin Haney fights Ryan Garcia, that's probably gonna be his biggest payday to date, right? Ryan Garcia and Rolly can fight, and that's gonna be huge. They're gonna make a shitload of money. And the loser's probably still gonna continue to make money, right? Ryan Garcia can fight me next. And again, it's not fair. It's just what the fuck it is. Devin Haney fight, if he fights anybody that's not on his level next, he's not going to make a lot of money. Let's just call it what it is, unless that person is already super fucking popular. So at this point, for Devin Haney to continue to make the big paychecks he's been making, he has to fight people up here. Ryan doesn't. That's what I mean. That's what, when people are getting their feelings, and I know, look, I get tired of my damn DMs after a while. The shit's fucking annoying. But people get on me because of the shit I say, and it's because it's real, bro. Look, it's the business of boxing is putting asses in the seats, selling those pay-per-views, right? Devin Haney's not a pay-per-view superstar yet. It's why Tank gets to call his shot, because he gets Madonna to his fights. When you get Madonna to your fights, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. It's why Canelo can call his shots. Why? He's fucking Canelo. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, bro. And I think that's what I'm trying to tell people is that if he wants to be popular, if he wants to be that household name, if he wants to be the pay-per-view star, he needs those, those popular guys, or he needs every fight from this point forward to be a legacy fight.
That's true. I think for Devin, it's also not. He's going to get these dudes to sign up. I mean, he wants the Ryan Garcia fight. It ain't his fault that Ryan Garcia snuck out the back door and is now talking about the Rolly fight either. So I want to see for Ryan also, he's got the big following. I want to see how much it does translate to pay-per-views, how much it does translate to ticket sales, because Devin has been on pay-per-view. He has the ticket sales and those things. And even right here, and I would just want to put this comment up here because I can guarantee you and promise you, that we are here for the exact reasons you're here for. We want to see the best fight the best. Nibs is just talking about from a business perspective. We're not even saying we want these business perspective things to follow through. We want to see these dudes fight the best of the best, no matter who it is. We don't even want to see Devin fight Ryan. That's something we had said. We're saying business-wise it would be good for Devin. That's not a fight we even really want to see. So I think all we do is we want to see the best of the best fight. I think some of the business reasoning, I can see what we were saying. For me, I still want to see Ryan's money translate a bit more. He did a huge job with Tank selling that pay-per-view. I want to see him build off that and continue to do that and be on pay-per-view himself, though, too, also. You're on mute, my guy.
Hey, play his fuck up. So, look, I want Devin to fight the Teals of the world. I want him to fight the Subaru Matiases of the world, because those are the better guys, right? Like, I want to see you fight those dudes. I don't really want to see you fight Ryan, because I know you're going to whoop his ass. It'll be good for your pockets. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I think Rolly and Ryan's a better fight, because it's a better fight. You don't know who's going to win that fight. If Devin fights Tio, I don't know who's going to win that fight. If Devin fights Matias, I can't say for a fact, who's going to win. That's what you want. A fight where, hey, I'm not 100% sure either one of you is going to win. That's what you want, right? Going into it. And we all want that. But at the end of the day, this is a business. And Devin's probably going to get Ryan, because it looks like that's what Golden Boy's going with anyway. They don't really want to pay attention to Ryan. Who knows what happens next? If we get Rolly and Ryan, great. If we get Ryan and Devin next, well, then what do you do? Because let's face it, if you beat Ryan, what do you get out of that? You're not getting a ship. You're not getting a belt. He doesn't have one. You're getting some money. You get your name out there. But then, okay, after you whoop his ass, can you please fight another champion so that we can start to get these, unification belts we all want at 140, because there's some monsters in the division.
For sure, for sure. The last thing I'll say is Jesus saying that Haney is going to get wins by paying off boxer types like Sandor Martin for no-risk fights. That is his minotaur. I think we do see it next, but I'm not going to say that's a no-risk fight. We've seen Sandor Martin beat Mikey Garcia. We've seen him. Some people thought he beat Teofimo Lopez too, so I think that that's the definition to me of even more of a high-risk, low-reward kind of situation for Devin Haney. If that fight is next, I would give him credit for that win without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sandor Martin is one of those guys that nobody really wants to fight. You know what I mean? And it's not as easy as people think it is. I think Devin Haney wins, but it's one of those fights where you're playing with fire by taking it, because you know that if you get him on his A game, if you get Sandor Martin like on his shit, that's gonna be a rough night for anybody.
No, for sure. We'll move on now to the fights we got this weekend. The big main event we'll talk on, and then we'll just touch on a few undercard fights real quickly. But Artur Beterbiev, the unified 3-belt champion at 175, is in against Callum Smith, former 168-pound champion, now moving up. He's looked bigger and stronger in at 75. But it's an interesting fight because I think this is a great fight by itself. You're looking at a Artur Beterbiev and Bivol fight looking forward. So originally when the fight was announced, I think me and a lot of other people were thinking along the lines of, we just want to see Beterbiev and Bivol, which I agree with that 100%. But we got to see Beterbiev, first of all, get past Callum Smith. We just saw with Deontay Wilder and Joseph Parker that he was supposed to fight AJ after that, and we saw how that turned out. So I am taking Beterbiev to win this fight. I think he's always had underrated IQ, footwork to go along just with his grueling style. I never thought he's gotten enough credit for his IQ and his skills with both his hands and his feet, just because of his punching power and the way he methodically breaks guys down. I thought that he's had an argument to be the best fighter in the world. I mean, he might not be number one pound for pound, but I think he's the kind of guy, he checks damn near every single box you want out of a fighter. Callum Smith is a very good fighter too. What are your thoughts on just this matchup overall and seeing both these guys back?
I think what you just said, right? Callum Smith's a very good fighter. Beterbiev is a pound for pound level fighter, right? He's got pound for pound level skills. Whether you have him in your pound for pound list or not, he's got pound for pound skills. Smith doesn't. So Smith, it's one of those fights where Smith is going to have to be 100 over 100 the whole night to even have a shot, right? Beterbiev knocks him out in the third round if you know, if I'm picking. You know, I know it's early, and we usually try to get that out of. Beterbiev knocks this dude out and by the third round, in my opinion. You know, but again, it's another one of those fights where you never know, because if you're getting Callum Smith on his shit, you know, he's proven before that, you know, he can upset an apple cart. So, you know, and again, as we found out, you know, Deontay Wilder fucked around and found out, like, you know, you said Joseph Parker didn't get the memo. So, and apparently neither did Deontay Wilder, because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So, you know, it depends. If, you know, I don't think Beterbiev is the kind of fighter to take anybody for granted. I think he learned the hard way in the Yarde fight that, hey, you got to take everybody serious 100% of the time, because Yarde damn near had him out. You know what I'm saying? Is it Yarde or Yard? I don't know how you fuck you say his last name. But, you know, he almost had him out. You know, granted, Yard does hit really fucking hard. But, you know, I would it would blow my mind if Smith wins this fight. If anything other than Beterbiev knocking him out happens, it would be ridiculous to me.
Going back to that Yard fight too, one thing that a lot of people mention is that that's when they started to see, because I've been waiting for signs of slippage in a guy like Beterbiev. He's in his later 30s, so at some point, I mean, Father Time is undefeated, so at some point it's going to catch up to him. But I don't know if it was the first time I watched it, I thought, okay, maybe he is slowing down. But I think most of that actually has to go to credit. I think Yard just came to fight. He rose up to the occasion. He had the experience of the Kovalev fight before, where he had more success against Kovalev. He almost really knocked Kovalev out, and then gassed, stopped late, went to the drawing board, was able to control his gas tank a bit more too. So I think it's a combination of both. It's better BF slipping a bit too, but I think we got to give credit for Yard, like I said, for coming to fight. But
very good fighter. Very good fighter.
Exactly. And he did what we want to see when you're fighting a top guy like that. He came to fight and didn't turn out the way he wanted, but he let everything hang out there, and he did everything he could to try to become a unified champion. And he'll be back in big fights without a doubt soon too. But as far as this Callum Smith fight, it's an interesting stylistic fight. Callum Smith, even though he's the guy moving up in weight, he is longer, he is taller, but I think Beterbiev is still just a naturally bigger and stronger guy, even though Callum Smith, I think, has really filled into 175 really, really well. And it makes it crazy that he ever even fought at 168. But I think his only chance to win this fight is in the first half of the fight. I think his best chance is to kind of catch Beterbiev early. We've seen Beterbiev down. Callum Johnson knocked him down. He was knocked down earlier in a fight also. So I think this fight could maybe play the same way. Not that I see it happening, but I could see Callum Smith landing one of those catch and shoot left hooks, dropping Beterbiev. Maybe more kind of a flash knockdown, but if Beterbiev's going to get up to his feet and survive that 10 count, you then know he is coming right at you the rest of the fight until the fight is over. And I think that just the pressure, he'll be able to break him down. And Callum Smith has the size, but I think he can't afford to give up his size advantage. He does a lot of just sitting in the high guard. He does a great job of it. He'll catch and he'll shoot. He'll catch and counter just with that left hook over the top. He's had some great knockouts with that shot, but I just don't think Beterbiev is the kind of guy that you want to allow to close the distance on you like that. I think he's going to have to use the jab more and find that balance. It's always tough fighting a guy like Beterbiev because you got to find that balance of, do you really go all the way out trying to knock him out and leave yourself wide open? Or do you kind of jab and be more defensive, but that also allows him to kind of get going and close the distance? So he's going to kind of toe the line of being dangerous, but also being smart. But I just think, as you said, just Beterbiev is probably going to end up being too much. But interested to see how the fight plays out because I don't think it will happen, but it could turn out to maybe Beterbiev with all these injuries and inactivities added up and he just becomes old overnight tomorrow. I don't think that's going to happen. Another interesting stat is Callum Smith, because he did fight Canelo in, I think, the end of 2020. He's only completed 4 rounds since then. He's got 2 knockout wins, but he's only completed 4 full rounds since then. So a lot of people talk about Beterbiev being inactive, but Callum Smith has been active even longer than that, too. So I think that's something that factors in for both guys, not just for Beterbiev, as a lot of people bring up also.
Yeah, I mean, but his knockouts aren't against Canelo fighters. I mean, there's very few people on Canelo's level anyway, but he's not. I mean, I guess to give you credence to what you were saying, I mean, his stoppage wins do come early in fights, right? He's only got the one loss, to what most people feel is the best fighter, in our era right now. A lot of people will argue that with you, but what I'll say is this: if he can get his hands on Beterbiev's chin early, he might have a shot because as we saw with Yard, who touched him up pretty well. If you can get him in some trouble, but you have to execute when you get him in trouble, because if you let him out of the round, well, that's your ass, because he's then coming back full steam ahead, and I'm pretty sure he hits a lot harder than Callum Smith does.
Yeah, but we appreciate you, Corbin. Also, we appreciate all you guys in the chat. I mean, we're gonna all agree or disagree on certain things, but we're just here to talk about boxing. I mean, not enough people doing it kind of the way we do it. A lot of people look more for the clickbait things and stuff like that. But we're just here telling you guys, we just keep it real. We try to keep it on topic about boxing as much as we can. Sometimes we go off into different things, but hey, that's what we're here for, bro. So we appreciate you and everybody who's been tuning in the comments and this and that. But going back to this fight, I do have a little betting advice because I'm a betting man, nothing crazy, but here and there I do wager a little bit. But I think what I'm looking for in this fight is I think it's somewhat close to even money. I'd have to go back and look. But if you get, which we'll talk about, the co-main event is Christian and Billy. Talk about another one of our guys, too. Him by stoppage and Artur Beterbiev by stoppage is kind of close to even money. But also, you could hedge that with, what I would hedge that with is Callum Smith by knockout rounds 1 through 6 at plus 1,900. Now, do I think it happens? No. But for a plus 1,900, if you want to talk about a hedge, the thought behind it, as you were saying, is that if you're going to get a rhythm fighter like Beterbiev, you got to get him early. Once you get to rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8, he's going to really start going downhill. I think he's going to have Callum Smith up against the ropes a lot more, and he's going to put him in positions that he's going to really be able to kind of let his hands go. So if you're going to get him, you got to get him early. So I think I'd advise anybody, no matter if you're betting on Beterbiev at all, not a bad idea to throw a little hedge on Callum Smith early in the fight just to kind of have your back at the end of the day. Because do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, but I think it's a safe way to kind of cover yourself just in case it does happen. Because with age and activity, you're never really sure. And Callum Smith does hit hard, and we've seen Beterbiev down. So that's just my little thought process on the betting aspect on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, if you're watching this show, you should definitely take what we say is for betting on boxing. You should definitely take it very heavy because catch and counter. Unlike the guys on Monday, we do really well when it comes to picking fights. Just want to point that out. We're not batting 1,000, but we are up there. You know what I'm saying? We're definitely more than 50-50. So I'll say this, bro. If anytime the odds are super great, you want to put a little money on it. I tell people all the time, if you catch a heavyweight fight with a plus 500, put at least $20 on the plus 500 because there's a good chance that could happen, right? But I just think Beterbiev is on a different planet than Smith is, and that's no knock on Smith. I think if he were fighting somebody else, because your first step up to the 175-pound division and you're fighting what is arguably the best guy in the division, you're about to fuck around and find out. You know what I mean? I could see if you were the man at your division and hadn't lost to anybody. Now, if he'd have beat Canelo, or if that would have been a much more competitive fight than what it was, then okay. But we saw what happened when the man in another division comes up and tests, the guy at the bigger division. You get your ass whooped. I mean, and it's Canelo. It happened with Canelo when he stepped up. It happened. I mean, shit. But then Canelo fucks around and does it. To the guy that comes up to him. It's not just skill. It's taking punches from a naturally bigger person. I mean, Yard walks around at probably damn near 200 pounds, right? And Beterbiev's, be able to take his punches and keep going. Callum Smith probably doesn't walk around that heavy. That's another thing people don't take into consideration. Taking them bigger punches from them bigger boys is a whole nother life. So we'll see what happens, man. But I would say, if I'm gonna go out there and say you could probably see a knockout in all three of the fights on that card.
There we go. So that's the perfect kind of tie-in just quickly to those other two fights. Two really intriguing fights also. And Billy will be the main event on the co-main event. So I guess the headliner on ESPN. Jason Maloney will be the headliner on the ESPN Plus portion. But also the last thing I want to throw in for the Beterbiev Callum Smith fight. The thing to look for in the early rounds is even if there's not much action going on, just seeing when they're going around, who's able to dictate the terms in the ring. That's something I want you guys to all watch for when they're in the fight. So even if there's being no punches thrown, see if is Callum Smith, is his back up against the ropes early in the fight. Even if there's no punches thrown, is Beterbiev able to get him using his feet? Because Beterbiev has fantastic feet. He never gets enough credit for it. But is he able to kind of cut the ring off and get Callum Smith up against the ropes, even if he's not throwing many punches? Because that will, I think, set up for a longer second half of the fight. Callum Smith had a fight with John Ryder. John Ryder, a tough, rugged guy. A fight a lot of people thought John Ryder won. I think Beterbiev could do those kind of things just in a whole different way because Beterbiev's got the foot speed behind it, the boxing IQ, and all those things. So just be on the lookout, especially early in the fight, for is Callum Smith sitting in the center of the ring? Is he kind of more defending his ground, but also being smart when he does that? Or is he kind of, even in lulls in the fight, backing up against the ropes? Because I think that's something Beterbiev can use to his advantage going forward also. So there's something to keep an eye on.
So what I was looking at right now is the reason why I had my head down was if I were to place a bet right now, based on what I just said, with Artur Beterbiev knocking Callum Smith out in the third round, that's plus 2,500. So guys, just do the math real quick, right? If you put $20 on that, it's $520. You win $500 if you pick around. I'm not saying he will. It'll be exactly the third round, maybe around the third round, but you get the idea. But I'll say this, man. In Bealey, I'm super impressed with this kid. I think that he's next, right? Like I think whatever he wants to do, sign me the fuck up. I'm watching it. He's smoking the dude that he's in there with. I mean, I've never seen a dude throw so many punches at that weight with reckless abandon. And he takes out guys that give other people problems. You know what I'm saying? And he walks through them like they're nothing. So I'm putting my, you know where I'm putting my dude's winning, and he's winning easy. Period. Yeah,
Yes, sir. And
I said it was.
yeah. I think he's the real dark horse at 68 now. I think David Morrell was the dark horse, but I think enough people know about David Morrell. So it's like, if you're in the know of boxing, it's classic. If you know, you know. I think if you really pay attention to boxing, you know exactly how good David Morrell is. I think it's starting to get that way with Christian and Billy too. I think he's the definition of a dark horse. And I think that this year is going to be the year that he fully does break out. I think you got Eye of the Tiger's been behind him. They're starting to put him on. Like, he's now the co-main event. I mean, Jason Maloney is in a title fight, but Christian and Billy's the co-main event in a non-title fight, in a regional title fight for ranking implications and things like that. So I think that they think highly of him. Even Top Rank thinks he's someone they can build off of, and I would agree with that. His opponent, Rafael Murdoch, is a game guy. He's going to come to fight. He fought Zach Parker in a fight that was stop late, but he was competitive in that fight. So I don't think we don't have to worry about him coming to lay down. I think he's going to come and try to get the better of him, Billy. As you said, I just think that in Billy's firepower is going to be a lot for most guys. Unless you're the elite of the elite at 168, you're going to more than have your hands full. And even if you're the elite, I think you're going to have your hands full with this dude. I think he's learned how to also manage his gas tank a bit more. We saw the Gongora fight early last year, which was the fight of the year candidate, where he was able to really put it on Gongora. Gongora is a hell of a fighter, too. It looked like he had Gongora hurt, ready to go at times. Then Gongora came back and had him. Looked like he had him ready to go at times. Then he had the second and the third wins to keep going. I think the more fights he gets, the more he's going to be able to use those things, go back to the drawing board, work those kind of things out. And, man, I think right now he's already a problem. 2 or 3 fights from now, I think you could put him in with anybody at 168, and it would be one hell of a fight, win, lose, or draw.
Yeah, I mean, David Morrell is no longer the dark horse. He's the favorite in most people's minds at 168. I don't know if I pick anybody against him, and that's Canelo included. I think Mbili isn't ready for David Morrell yet, but I think he can take out just about anybody other than those top 3 guys, right? And he might be ready for one of them at the end of this year, if not early next year. So we got to see what his chin is first, though. We got to see, we got to let him take a shot that hurts, or find somebody who's got the skills enough to test him, or take him into those deeper waters, like you said, to test what that wind is. Because when he gets in there with those bigger boys, that wind is definitely going to get tested, and you're not going to be able to roll through everybody once you get to the elite level. So but until then, hey, the sky's the limit with this kid. He's Showtime because he's got that knockout power. He's entertaining. He throws a million punches. So don't go get popcorn. Don't blink. Make sure you get all your concessions. Before his fight starts, because once it does, it's a wrap.
Yeah, but I think for me, he answered a lot of those questions actually in that Gongora fight earlier last year. Gongora's not a huge name, but Gongora, he's someone who's 22-2 now with 17 knockouts, and he's been able to carry his power late. He's won an IBO title by knocking a guy out in the last round. He's someone who's trained around my area, so I know guys who have been with him and stuff would know that this dude hits really, really hard. He's a southpaw, he's awkward, and he was where you saw him Billy get chin checked a little bit in the way he responded, because let's be real. People like to make big deals out of when these guys get cracked and these guys get quote unquote hurt per se, but guys, it's boxing. Every single fighter, your favorite fighter's favorite fighter has been hurt, knocked down, even knocked out before. So it ain't even about if they get hurt, because every person in this sport's going to get hurt. It's how they respond to it, and the way he was able to respond, take back control of that fight against a guy in Carlos Gongora, who is another legit guy at 68. Gongora is going to be on the B side, and he's going to upset another guy pretty soon, I'm damn sure, just because of the kind of fighter he is, the awkwardness he is, his IQ, his punch power, punch selection, all those kind of things. So to me, he answered those questions in this fight, and that's why I'm so high on him, because I've seen him do it against a top 10 fringe level guy, and he's been able to answer those questions for me.
Yeah, I mean, you look, if you pointed that out, but to dive into that a little bit further, I mean, if you take the top 10 pound for pound fighters in the world, no matter who you have in or around your top 10, they've all been clipped. They've all had to survive some scary moments. Some of them have even been knocked out, like you said, right? I mean, a lot of people have Tyson Fury in their top 10 still. I mean, we all saw what happened with those Deontay Wilder fights. You know what I mean? The fact that he was able to get up, shit. But that's what makes you great, right? Is not the getting the clip. It's what you do after. And I think once we see him in there with some elite level guys, he's going to have to answer that toll on a higher level, even than he did in his previous fights. So, but again, like I said, I'm 100% in. Like, I'm putting my chips on that kid. So, and until he gets those David Morrell, Benavidez, Canelo fights, hey.
Yes, sir. And then we got Jason Maloney against Saul Sanchez. So it's kind of tough this week. I don't have like an official dog watch pick, but I would say just to look out for the Callum Smith one I mentioned earlier. If you're going to bet Callum Smith, I think you could take the money line. It's good odds too, but I think if you took the KO rounds 1 through 6 at plus 1900, I think that's the most likely outcome. If you're going to bet an underdog for that payout, I think that's worth it. But even Saul Sanchez is someone to keep an eye on too. Some guys who I deeply respect in the sport and watch a lot of tape on these guys. They think Sanchez has a really good chance of beating Maloney. I think Maloney's kind of arrived now. I think his Astrolabio win was a great win. I mean, he lost to Inoue, but we've seen what Inoue's been doing to all these guys. So let's be real. That ain't no shame in that. He beat Astrolabio, another fighter who's a very, very good fighter. So Saul Sanchez at plus 300. Another guy to keep an eye out for. I think Maloney with the experience could be enough to probably get him over the edge, but I do think that's going to be a competitive, fun fight. So if you're tuning into the main event card, I think tuning into that fight on ESPN Plus, it's a fun little fight, and it's a title fight with real implications too. So I think it's definitely one to watch out for also.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually my dog watch. So I think, when I look at the card top to bottom, I just think that, Mbili and Beterbiev are levels above the guys they're fighting. I don't necessarily think Maloney is that much ahead, if not ahead of Sanchez. I think Sanchez is a live dog. I think, if it were for my money, if you're looking for a dog watch, put it on Sanchez. I think he's got a chance to not only win the fight, but win it impressively from what I've seen from him. So, Maloney's good. He's really good, but I can't always bet on the guy. So, if we're looking at somebody that can actually come in there and make his night rough, I think Sanchez fits the bill, and I think it was actually this might probably be the more entertaining fight on the card. So, this is the fight. To me, this is the fight to watch, not just because of Sanchez being my dog watch, but I think this is going to be the better of the three fights.
Yeah, I think it's especially you're going to see a lot of back and forth moments and a lot of sways and momentum too. So I like that too because I went out on a limb, not an official pick, but I got to make an official pick. So I will. I mean, I'll go piggyback off you too. I threw it out there, but if I'm going to make one, I do have more confidence in Sanchez beating Maloney than I would a Callum Smith beating Beterbiev. So I think that's the easier pick. I mean, I was robbed of a perfect start last week with Barroso, but I guess we can still count it. So we're 1-0 right now. So we'll see if Sanchez can make it 2-0. But I think that's about it. We've covered all the cards that we have for tomorrow. I think that's the only major card that we have. I know J. Rock Williams is fighting in a club show in Jersey maybe tonight, so we'll be interested to see if boxing fans look out for the result of that fight because he's someone who's still in the mix without a doubt too. But we'll be back next Friday. We're going to do our award show, extended award show, and we're also going to have we're going to have our picks for all these awards, some honorable mentions, just some conversation around the awards too. And we'll kind of mention some of the other fights for next weekend. But it's kind of a bye week in the fight. So I think it's going to be a big week for the award show. I'm excited for that. If you're excited for these awards we got, because we've been looking at a lot of them. Some of them are tough calls, some of them are easy calls. But I'm excited to kind of break these things down next Friday because it's going to be a good one. A lot of guys who deserve awards that might not get them, but that's why the honorable mentions are so big too. Because there's a lot of dudes that we want to give shouts to that had hells of years last year.
Hey, I want people to understand. We take these like the end of the year awards for ITR, not just catch and counter. We have a catch and counter award we're going to hand out as well. That's just for us. But ITR as a whole, everybody got in on the call. Everybody was there. We what almost 2 hours we spent debating these awards because it's not easy, right? We don't just phone these in. We don't go pick another site's top awards and go, okay, yeah, that's what we're going to say to. We make our own list. We go over them. and then we argue the merits, and we don't always agree. I think probably out of all the awards will end up handing out, I think they were split down the middle. We ended up having to have a couple tiebreakers. So, tune in for that. There's going to be some really good awards handed out, some surprises, I think. And then, look out for that catch and counter award. We got some awards we're giving out for our favorite fight, not necessarily the best or this, that, and the third best records, just a good dude. You know what I mean? So or a woman. I don't want to get canceled. So appreciate y'all. And yeah, man, I think 2023 spoiled us. So 2024, you better be on your job because 2023 we got some really damn good fights.
Hey, and don't get me wrong, like Fighter of the Year, Knockout of the Year, those awards are all cool. But hey, that Catch and Counter award now you're talking about an award you really earned. So I think be on the lookout for those. We're going to kind of talk and figure it out. I got a few ideas, but we're going to narrow those things down. But we had a little nickname idea in here for Arthur British Destroyer Beterbiev. So hey, if he wins tomorrow night, I think that's something you could throw out there. Eddie Hearn might not be the biggest fan of it. He wants a British light champ at light heavyweight. We're not too sure if he's going to have one after tomorrow night, but hey, we shall see. That's why they make these fights happen. So, Nibs, I think that's it for episode 18. We want to let these fans know on some little game about some things they should support around the boxing world. The floor is yours, as always.
Yes, sir. We talked about it earlier. You not just domestically, but if you are listening or watching from a different country, please support your local guys. We see a lot of these Mexico fighters, a lot of the Venezuelan guys, a lot of these third world countries, Philippines, whatever, right? A lot of these guys are just trying to get food on their table, not necessarily fame. They're just trying to feed their families. That happens a lot of domestically too, but it's all over the world. So you see a lot of these guys like the Barrosos of the world. That's why we're so happy for him finally getting his due, right? Because he's put in the work. He came literally out the mud. You see guys talk about it all the time. Well, I got it out the mud. He literally did. Then we talk about these guys, right? A lot of your local fighters have regular day jobs. A lot of these guys are cops, firefighters, teachers. That some guys are just working at call centers, construction. They're doing whatever they got to do to put food on their tables. So by all means, go ahead, find your local card. Again, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, down south, or up north, there's plenty of local action you can find. Jack's gone to football fields and hockey rinks to watch, local fights. So they're out there. They can be made. And I guarantee you they'll not only be entertaining, but you'll feel good about yourself supporting your local economy. Let's get these guys out here. Let's get some of these guys that not a lot of people know about on Catch and Counter.
100%. And even just, I want to plug a quick local show that I'm going to be going to. Obviously, everybody knows that I'm going to the Abraham Nova Oshaki Foster title fight, which that's a big fight. That fight will have its shine. We're going to talk a lot about that fight. But even I want to give credit to a card. It's going to be February 3rd at Mohegan Sun. I just did an interview last week with one of the main event fighters, Cordell Booker. Very established amateur, national champion amateur, 21-1, world ranked. So he's looking to fight to potentially secure a big fight. He's fighting Greg Vendetti. So check out that interview I did with Cordell. Also look at his social media pages. He has ticket information, all those kind of things to watch to support that event. Kevin Walsh, a guy from Brockton, Massachusetts, who I know, who I've been a big supporter of. He's on the card also. Frank Hogan, another guy who I've been around with, who I'm a supporter of, is also on the card. And we got a bunch of other, even guys who I haven't met in person. I'm definitely excited to see fight. A bunch of other fights on there. So that's a really good card. CES puts on good shows, so I'm excited to be there. Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, February 3rd. And that's just an example of some of these fights where some of those names I mentioned that they're fighting on a local show February 3rd, but after that, if they win, and when they win, these dudes are going to be on TV, so it's always good to find out. And you enjoy the story more when you see those guys build from the ground up and once you see them in those big title shots. So I just want to throw that out there. So if you're looking for local cards, that's without a card to keep your eye on, especially if you're in the New England, New York area for sure.
Hey, rep your city. Be proud of it. You know what I mean? Because again, a lot of these guys that and that's in any sport, but a lot of these guys that are superstars now, you would have never heard of if it wasn't for somebody supporting them locally. Even the Tanks and Rollies of the world had to come from somewhere, right? So support your guys, get them out there, jump on their social medias too. If you find a guy that's got a good fight out there, a lot of these guys now they're pushing that social media drag, and that's how they get some of these fights. And we've heard and seen it all the time. Some of these bigger fights on bigger cards get made because they linked up. Oh, I checked his social media out. He's got some following. Let's put him on the card. So, make sure you follow and support these guys. It doesn't necessarily always have to be money. It can be likes. It could be subscribes to their channels or whatever they're doing on social media. It could be just showing up to some of these fights for free. Some of these fights you ain't got to pay. You just got to, buy a hot dog or two. You know what I'm saying? So get out there, support. And you know what, Jack? As always, baby, it's catch and count. Fuck with it, so fuck off.
Yes, sir. Ain't that the truth? So that's it for episode 18. We appreciate all y'all in the chat. So we will be back next Friday, award show. We will see y'all then. Everyone else, have a